The sky over Valera 9 burned with fire and smoke. Shattered warships tumbled through the atmosphere like wounded birds, their hulls twisted and sparking. Below, the battlefield stretched for miles, a scar of craters and shattered fortifications. My squad was pinned behind the remains of a supply depot, taking fire from Kharon mercenaries who had turned this colony into a killing field. I should have been terrified. I was. But nothing could prepare me for what happened next. "Hold the line," I shouted over the roar of plasma cannons. My pulse pounded, each beat echoing like a drum of doom. The squad's morale was faltering. Most of us had never faced a battle of this scale before, and the Kharon forces were relentless, their advanced armor cutting through our defenses like butter. Then, across the battlefield, a shadow appeared. At first, I thought it was another enemy mech, but the shape moved differently, fluidly,
commandingly.
A figure descended from the sky in a blaze of light and dust, armor glinting under Valera 9's dying sun. It was impossible. No human had the tech or the nerve to make that kind of entrance. And yet, as the dust cleared, I saw her unmistakable silhouette. It was her, Lyra, my alien ex-wife. I blinked, unsure if my eyes were deceiving me. She had been gone for years, vanishing after the political fallout from her homeworld forced her into exile. We hadn't spoken since. And now, here she was fully armored, descending from the sky like some celestial warrior. The moment she hit the ground, the battlefield froze. I'm not exaggerating. Friend and foe alike froze in place, guns and cannons suspended midair. Even the Kharon mercenaries, known for their brutality, dropped their weapons. Her armor was unlike anything I'd ever seen, sleek yet brutal, engraved with symbols I didn't recognize but somehow felt ancient and commanding. Lights pulsed along the plates, synchronized with her heartbeat, or perhaps with the battlefield itself. She radiated authority,
power, fear.
I found myself rooted to the spot, memories flooding back. The late nights arguing over policy and ethics, the quiet moments beneath alien skies on her homeworld, the laughter we once shared. And then the betrayal, the political machinations that tore us apart.
But none of that mattered now.
All I could think was she was here. And she was unstoppable. Lyra's gaze swept across the battlefield, violet eyes locking with mine for the briefest of moments. Then she turned toward the enemy lines. Without a word, she moved, and the world obeyed her. Where she stepped, energy surged. Shields flickered, weapons failed, and the Kharon lines reeled. Her pulse seemed to radiate a field of command, a subtle force that bent machines and minds alike. My squad watched in awe and terror as the tide of battle shifted. "Go!" she finally shouted, her voice amplified by the armor. "Push forward. For survival." We obeyed instinctively. We surged out of cover, bolstered by her presence. The Kharon forces staggered under the sudden momentum, their coordinated attack collapsing into chaos. She moved through them like a storm, her armor flashing and her weapons firing with precision I could barely comprehend. Each movement was poetry in destruction. I ran beside her, catching glimpses of recognition in her eyes. I wanted to speak, to ask her why she was here, why she had returned, but the battle demanded more than words. A Kharon war mech lunged at her from the flank, plasma cannons blazing. She reacted instantly, spinning on her heels, striking the mech with her forearm plate. Sparks erupted, the mech staggered, and she delivered a single, precise strike that shattered its core. The enemy soldiers nearest to it screamed and ran, or tried to, but some froze in the shadow of her presence. Minutes, hours, passed in a blur of gunfire and chaos. the battlefield gradually tilted. What had been a desperate defensive fight turned into a counterassault led by Lyra. Every step she took seemed to inspire those around her, even among the humans who barely knew her name. Finally, the Kharon commander, a hulking brute of a creature in obsidian armor, stepped forward to confront her. "Lyra Valketh," he snarled. "You abandoned your people. I left because you corrupted them," she shouted back. Her voice carried over the din of battle, every syllable a hammer to the ears. "And now you will face justice." The fight between them was swift and brutal. He moved with raw power, she with fluid precision. I watched, powerless, as her every move bent the battlefield to her will. The commander fell, his army scattering in disarray. And then she turned to me. Her armor still hummed with energy, dust and blood streaking her plating. "It's done," she said softly. "This war will end today." I wanted to ask her why she had returned. Why now, after all these years? But I knew the answer was complicated, woven with politics, vengeance, and perhaps lingering feelings that neither of us had dared to confront. We didn't speak much after that. Together, we helped consolidate the ceasefire, broker a temporary peace, and evacuate civilians from the wrecked city. Wherever she walked, respect followed, not just from humans, but from the alien forces that had once been enemies. At night, I found her standing alone on a ridge overlooking the battlefield. The sun had set, and the sky burned with streaks of red and purple. "You didn't have to come back," I said quietly, keeping my distance. "I did," she replied, her voice almost lost in the wind. "Because some deaths aren't about revenge. They're about balance." "And us?" I asked cautiously. Her eyes softened for the briefest moment. "Some things never change," she said. "But some things need to be left behind." She turned, walking toward her transport that hovered silently in the night. I watched as she ascended, the lights from her armor fading into the stars. The war was over, at least for now. The Kharon forces had retreated, their morale shattered by the unstoppable force that had descended mid-battle. My squad and I were left to clean up, to rebuild, and to wonder what the future might hold. And I wondered about her, about the alien I had loved and lost, who had returned not for me, not for revenge, but to tip the scales of war with her presence alone. Years later, stories would circulate of the warrior who stopped a war with a single appearance, an armored figure whose arrival caused enemies to drop their weapons instantly. No one knew her full name, and most didn't know she had once walked among humans in a life full of love, loss, and forgotten promises. But I remembered, and I knew that some legends, some warriors, were destined to be more than just myths. She had returned. She had landed mid-war. And she had reminded the galaxy that some people, some aliens, some humans, were impossible to ignore. Ending. Lyra's presence ensured peace, at least temporarily. Political negotiations began under her silent supervision, and the humans of my squad were heralded as heroes for surviving the battlefield. But for me, the memory of her landing, the awe she commanded, and the quiet acknowledgement in her eyes remained vivid. She had fought not for me, not for glory, but for balance. And in that balance, she had carved a place for both humans and aliens alike. As her ship disappeared into the stars, I whispered a promise to myself. If the galaxy ever required her again, or me, I would be ready. Because some warriors do not just fight wars. They change the course of history. And she had done exactly that.